I'm really surprised that at this time in the day, people are still so energetic and still so enthusiastic about what's going on here that we need to really push to get people to sit down. So let's take our seats and get through this final session. And for this, we want to have a panel discussion. We have a panel of two. One couldn't make it today because of an eventuality in Nairobi, but the two who are here are eminent enough in this practice area, and I believe that their contribution will definitely be very, very informative and helpful to us as we continue with this conversation. And to begin with, I want to introduce the two panelists. And at my extreme left is Professor Tanya States, who is a professor at the University of Greenwich Natural Resources Institute. And one of her core activities or core practice areas has been working on post-harvest loss, estimating the loss, working on policy to reduce the loss levels, and looking at all sorts of dimensions in which we can get policy and enterprise attention to post-harvest losses so that the interventions that are needed to reduce those losses can be implemented. Next to her is Professor Sani Latif, who is ex-NRI, not ex-NRI only in terms of being a student who got his PhD through the institute, but also have a long history of collaboration with the institute. He's a very prominent professor in Nigeria, having worked on not just post-harvest issues, but especially as they affect the root and tuber crops. And currently, he's been appointed as the executive director of the Nigeria Stored Food Products Research Institute. So, Professor Sani, you are welcome. Tanya, my colleague, you are also welcome. And we want to start off with the Mentimeter questions, or that will come later. The two of them would have very short presentations, after which we would invite everybody in this audience to make some brief comments or ask any questions or any contributions that are relevant, and we want to start off with Tanya. Oh, okay. The order has changed, so Latif, it's up to you.
No problem. Presentation, please. I want to first and foremost extend my profound gratitude to the NRI colleagues and the management for inviting us and to giving us this opportunity of meeting again. It's been a very good opportunity. You've listened to quite a lot of presentations since morning on post-harvest, and this is one of my best shots that I normally use to let people know that when we are talking of post-harvest, we are talking of activities that happens immediately after production up to the consumers. And if you look at this, every node of the post-harvest is very important. In fact, if we study it very well and we begin to take a roll call of some of us here, we'll find each of us being an expert in some of these areas, and which is very important. And for us to be able to get it right, we must get it. We must get all the solutions like Linus has said and Brighton, all of them since morning. But my own take is purely on the hardcore of post-harvest. That is equipment. And today, for my institute, Nigerian Stored Product Research Institute, I just want to show you that an emerging post-harvest issue is the cooling technology. In the past, we know cooling technology for ice cream in Africa. But a lot of effort are now talking on solar smart cooling technology for fruits and vegetables, horticultures. And two, even orange fresh sweet potato. People are now talking of how do you store the puri for the bakers to be able to buy at the rural level. This is a gap that I think NRI need to also begin to look into so that we'll be able to optimize it more. The second one is every one of us keep on talking of PICS bags. But PICS bags, you use it and you discard it. But we have the hermetic drum that could be reused, and very simple technology, and which upcoming early career scientists can also take over. So there are quite a lot of it. This solar parabolic dryer is there because nobody wants to buy a flash dryer of 22 million, about $100,000. Where will you get such money for business in post-harvest? So you need a small, low-cost, sustainable, renewable platform for some of the interventions that we are trying to promote. Now, what will be the future or the characteristics of a future post-harvest scientist? I say number one, must have understanding of drivers of food systems. The second major critical point is must be skillful in digital post-harvest innovations. Prediction and forecasting is very important in the future. Artificial intelligence, the use of robotics now. Hello, look at everybody keeping talk of drones in production systems. Can we begin to talk of drones in post-harvest? It's very important. And must be flexible and have these multi-sectorial, multidisciplinary skills network. And that is the core strength of NRI, actually, over the years. How are we going to train the future post-harvest scientists? Number one is the issue of North-South collaborations. I have benefited from it since 1995 in NRI, and all the career structures or whatever I've passed through, milestones, were actually induced, contributed, supported, and promoted by NRI. Up to being the best technology developer in Africa by CGI. That's to NRI. That is the enormity of the contribution. Can we reproduce SUNY of the 2035? That curricula need to change in developing countries. Two, the area of nanotechnology is becoming serious now. The biotech is there, but nanotechnology is an area where I felt we need to look at, and open source materials, like my colleague in South Africa said. NRI is globally positioned to continue what you used to do. This issue of raw material is very important. Then funding opportunities. I keep on saying, when are we going to have cafeteria? Because that is the pool of interventions that will be able to reproduce so many people at the small level and the farm level. The last point is NRI today is still in the UK, no satellite campus. And because I have to show you some of the pictures where I'm coming from. There's one I wanted to show you when myself and Kola were so tiny like this, like fingerlings. And today, we are here. Dominic is here, and Adrian, all of you, Ben, you have been mentors to every one of us. So my take is that training the next post-harvest scientist, we also rely on NRI standing up and do not rest on what you are doing. The world actually needs you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sani. And I'll have a bit of comment on that when we come to open the conversation to everybody in the room. But before then, let's hear from Tanya.
Okay, so thank you. I'm here by surprise. Yeah, this morning I didn't know I'd be here. Our colleague, Prof. Jane Ambuku, suffered a major bereavement last night, so sadly she couldn't join us. Now, Jane works on perishable crops. She works on tomatoes, she works on mango value chain, she works on cowpea leaves, she works on all of that. And she was going to share with us about the cool storage systems and chains across sub-Saharan Africa and work they've been doing, testing those at farmer level, at trader level, and at all of these other levels. So I'm jumping in here, but I cannot be Jane, and I cannot talk to you about all of those aspects. So I'm going to share a little bit with you, but I just wanted to let you understand that although many of us have been talking about grains and durable crops, there's a lot of work that's ongoing on the perishables. Prof. Opara mentioned the pomegranate work that they train students on, who then go out and work a lot across the continent on perishables. So I just wanted to let you know we weren't being biased there, and that's what's happening. So let's have a look at what we're talking about when we talk about post-harvest systems. And I think, we've got these nice frameworks, diagrammatics and things, but I think we need to look at kind of what are we actually talking about when we talk about post-harvest systems. And all of these images show elements of the post-harvest systems that we're all pretty familiar with across sub-Saharan Africa. They're very complex, yeah? And there's no point hiding that complexity, yeah? They're dynamic, they change, things move, yep, they stay for a month here, they stay for 9 months in storage, they can, different people involved at each stage. Losses can happen at all these different levels. So when somebody asks you, how much do you lose post-harvest? How simple do you think that question is? I'm going to ask you all to stand up now. Could you all stand up? My question to you all is, okay, so when a lot of the data that comes out about the level of post-harvest loss, yeah, it's done on perceptions, or what I'd like to call guesstimates, yeah, people get out, do surveys with people, ask the farmer, so last year, how much did you lose in your cowpea crop post-harvest? How easy a question do you think that is to answer? So I'm going to ask you, because I don't believe many of you are farming cowpeas, but I do believe that most of you have got kitchens, and some of you will have been busy preparing food. So in the last 3 months, if any of you know how much of your staple cereal crops, let's look at our bread, our rice, our pasta, our fufu, our sadza, our ugali, how much do you think you lost in the last 3 months? If you know, sit down. Yeah? How much you wasted, how much you threw away of that because you'd overportioned, or it had gone off, or the fridge broke down, or the power cut. Yeah? Okay, thank you. So that's what I'm trying to kind of bring across. You can see the data when somebody asked about this, yeah? It's a really difficult question. But this is where, yeah, please do sit down. This is where a lot of the data that decisions are made on comes from. So Paula was talking earlier about common sense questions missing from some of the work they were doing, yeah? This is all, we got to really interrogate data when we kind of see it, because often we could be making some very faulty decisions based on some assumptions when we haven't actually looked deep enough in it. So post-harvest losses, they happen for many, many reasons at all of the different stages, yeah? And these are just some of the images we've done on shattering, on livestock, threshing, yep, leaving it behind on the plant, rain happening when you don't expect to be happening, pests, insects, rodents, not monitoring your crop until you go in and it's a bit too late and it's all been turned to the dust that we saw Brighton showing earlier on today. So at each of our different post-harvest stages, we get losses happening, yeah? And when you ask the question, how much did you lose post-harvest, you're actually asking a farmer not only to remember what happened last year, which we know is pretty difficult, but also to sum up the loss that happened at all of these different stages, because post-harvest is all of these different activities that happen. So I just wanted to kind of illustrate why that's so difficult. So we've been working through AFLIS trying to pull together what exists of good quality data on post-harvest losses. And it's not easy, and we've been trying to do it beyond the cereals, which are the most researched, to bring in the legumes, to bring in the root and tuber crops, because these are all incredibly important in diets. So this has involved a lot of measuring, and it's difficult. Brighton mentioned this earlier. It's really difficult, yeah? It's out there at each of these different stages. You don't know when that farmer's going to wake up and decide it's time to harvest. Yeah, that depends on the climate. But you've got to be up there with your team measuring when they're ready to do that. So all of this is why there's not much data on this, because it is so complicated. So just moving ahead beyond the lost data that we're trying to collect and that we have been doing some measurement of with colleagues across the sub-Saharan African continent, we also kind of know that there's plenty of interventions out there. And we did a systematic review a few years ago, which we're currently updating at the moment. And we can see the hotspots, the darker colors on the African map are where there's been a lot of work done. And the gray is where there really hasn't been much done that shows real-world testing of interventions that can help in reducing losses. Because the only reason we're kind of interested in food loss waste is so we can help reduce it. We know this is an inefficiency in the system. So there are plenty of interventions, yeah, at each of these different stages. There are things we could be doing differently. There's knowledge that's missing. There's getting people to link together. There's all of this that could help us in reducing losses. So I want to jump just a bit further. And I'd like to, actually, before I do that, I want to say something that when we're talking about this data, actually the data from Africa is a lot better on food loss than it is from, say, the UK and from Europe, yeah? There's also the data that exists for here is also guesstimates, yeah? Very, very little work getting out there, measuring, crawling around in the apple orchards, finding what's left, looking at what the combine harvester hasn't picked up, looking what's actually being lost during storage, yeah? There isn't the data, so all of the decision-making globally is based on a lot of perceptions, a lot of guesstimates around this. And we don't know how accurate they are. So I think we've touched on food waste as well today. And again, when we're talking metrics on this, for Europe, there's been a lot of work done for North America. But for Africa, it's really, there's a few studies, just a handful of studies coming out. And whilst in the UK, on average, each of us wastes 77 kilos of food a year, with the data we can find so far from Africa ranges from 8 to 179 kilos. So, you know, we still need a lot of further work to do to understand what's going on there in that data. But work even in Kibera in Nairobi, a very low-income area, shows that 72% of households there are wasting some of their food, they say, and that's because of poor storage. They don't have fridges, things go off, it's maize-based, it's perishable vegetables, it's milk, rodents get in if you haven't got somewhere to keep it safe, yeah? So even though those households are spending 75% of their income on food, there is still some of that food that gets wasted, yeah? So although there used to be this narrative that food loss was an issue in low-income countries and food waste was an issue in high-income countries, we're challenging both of those narratives. The more we start to look for actual hard evidence, neither of those narratives stands up. So the other thing I just wanted to touch on while I've got the opportunity of the stage, and this is not a typo. This is the other issue, yeah? We talked about malnutrition, undernutrition, yeah? But we've also got overnutrition. We've got to think about overconsumption. And this whole area of metabolic food waste is somewhere that's picking up quite a lot. This is a study in Italy looking at overconsumption, yeah? And when we start to visualize this, if it was any other kind of resource, we'd be talking about the inefficiency here. And this is a difficult topic to talk about often, so we're often told not to mention it, but it's an important element, and it ties together a lot of what we were talking about this morning, I think, and the food loss and waste story. It's another element alongside that, the overnutrition as a form of food waste there. Okay, the one last thing I wanted to touch on was the opportunities for food loss and waste valorization, and we've been doing some work, I think Parag is around somewhere. But, you know, all of these opportunities, this is something that really is open for further exploration. We're working with brewers and distillers on their spent grain. We're looking at what gets lost from the seaweed value chains. What about the grape pomace from making wine? There are all these opportunities to take these and look at what could be extracted from them that's not currently being used or that might be being discarded. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tanya. I know that Ben is very actively looking at his watch, and we have very limited time, so we'll make it as quick as possible. But to start off, Professor Sani said $100,000 for investment in technology to reduce food loss, that it's not available. But I think there's a conversation around that will come up later to show that actually somebody could have the opportunity to take $250,000 and decide what he or she wants to do in terms of investment to reduce food loss. and we'll see what answers we get when we get to that point. But he also mentioned something about collaboration between NRI and other institutions. And one of the things that struck me when we began having conversations with an Africa-based organization, research institute, to develop training as well as collaboration on technology development and other things, was that there seems to be some sort of compartmentalization of approaches. If it's technology, let's focus on the technology. But the others, let's leave it for the others. And when it comes to even reporting food loss, it's just a percentage, 30% loss in virtually every agricultural value chain, even though that is not the real case. What we have found in the course of implementing AFLIS is that politicians and policymakers respond less to percentages than when they are giving figures on the value of losses. If, for instance, you show to the government in Ethiopia that they are losing over $650 million a year from just maize, teff, and wheat loss, then they will pay attention. I wonder whether we can go beyond just 77 kilos of food loss for the average household in Europe and say, actually, if you calculated the value, this is how many thousands of pounds you are wasting each year. And if you did some very basic, simple things, you could have saved that for yourself. This may be the area that we may have to be exploring more when it comes to food waste, as well as further conversations on food loss. But I want to open the floor for at least two comments from the floor, because I think that you'll be hearing so many people talk, and it's a good opportunity for one or two people to. Yes, so I've seen one hand. Second one, very quickly. Okay. Brighton, you have spoken, so I'll come to you if there is no other person. Okay, so sir, you first, and then after that, the other hand at the back. Yeah, please. And please try to be as brief as you can so that we can bring in a lot more than the two.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to share my own experience about farming and storage. In the 2022-23 farming season, I produced about 10 tons of maize in my own farm. And then immediately I was faced with the problem of storage because I wasn't just prepared to store that amount of maize on the farm. Now what happened is that I could have sold the maize, but then when you harvest your maize, everybody else is also harvesting. So by that time, when I was harvesting, the price of 100 kilograms of maize was just about 20 pounds, $25, and that's very little. If I could store that maize for 4 months, I'll sell 100 kilograms for $45 instead of 25. So I was faced with a challenge. What do I do immediately to secure the safety of my maize so that I could sell it later? So the easy solution was to sell about 6 tons and retain 4, which I could store on the farm. Now, for me, I could do that. But when it comes to a small-scale farmer, of course, I'll still small scale, but then you have somebody who's producing only about a ton. A ton could be a surplus, so they also need to get rid of the maize so that it doesn't get damaged or they don't face huge losses. But then the farmer is only going to get 20 pounds per 100 kilograms, which is probably a wastage, really. So they decide to risk storage on the farm. And at the end of the season, let's say about after 6 months, maybe 50% of which is already a loss. So this is the real challenge that farmers are facing. Proper storage to reduce losses, and also avoiding the losses which are due to low prices at the time of harvest. In Tanzania, the estimate is that 10 to 15% of maize is lost to various kind of pests, rodents, insects, all that. Now, for crops like
Please,
paddy,
if you can just be... you wind it up.
For crops like rice, there's a system where it's called a voucher system, where you have got a central storage and you pay very little to store your maize until prices are up. But that doesn't work so much for maize, which is the staple for many people. So that challenge is still there in many parts of Africa, and I think that's where we need immediate solutions to secure safety of the crop.
Thank you very much. Yep.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Sani and Stanyan. I want to make a comment. I think we are all doing a lot on post-harvest control in Africa, but there's actually a gap, and this is the networking gap. I'm sure Professor Sani will be surprised that this is Professor Barnabas, the director of SEFTA, BSU. We are even here, two of us, and we are even working together. And we didn't know we were here together. So, yeah, I mean, and when I listened to the presentation from AFLIS, I listened to Opera, and then to crown it all, I was going to blame Professor Ben, because he has all of us, and he has not called all of us in one room. And he knows that I got big money from the World Bank to work on post-harvest control in West and Central Africa in the last 10 years. So I think we need to make an effort, and I told the presenter from AFLIS that we need to make an effort to sit in one room to see how we can see what we have been doing together and do it together. Because if you count, I have over 70 PhDs in post-harvest related courses in the last 8 years, and I have so many other. We even did a post-harvest congress in West and Central Africa, and the last one, Sani was there himself. And we tried to even get a representation from the Africa Post-Harvest Congress. We couldn't get it. You know, the last one, we even funded it with $5,000. But we have not even been able to get that attention to listen to us. You know, so I think we need to make a very strong effort to jointly sit in one room to think about what is happening in post-harvest loss control in Africa. That will help us a lot, instead of working independently as we are doing without seeing what is a major problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I want to be gender unbiased, so Madam, please.
Yeah. I'm Hulda Shaidi Swai from Nelson Mandela in Arusha. One of the presenters mentioned about nanotechnology is one of the way of addressing post-harvest loss. I'm a nanotechnologist. People talk about this emerging technology just by passing. They don't take it as serious as it should be. Like artificial intelligence, when it started, nobody really took it seriously, but now it's taking over the world. So nanotechnology can actually be another solution. It has been a solution in medicines. It has been a solution in water treatment, and it can be a solution in post-harvest loss if we take it seriously. Another subject, I'm a professor on nanotechnology, so I've also got Oliver Tambo Chair with $1 million on nanotechnology, so I know what I'm talking about. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think that we would give the last word to the panelists, but before I do that, I agree with you that post-harvest loss interventions, whether technology or practices, is not just the technology or the practice. There is a financial side to it. And we did some work with the sorghum farmers in northern Ghana, and it was clearly demonstrated that if you create the right financial incentives and the appropriate technology is available, you don't need to even subsidize the technology. the farmers and other actors within the chain will take it up. So definitely, when we are working on these technologies, whether nano or not, let's be mindful of the fact that the end user is going to decide, and that end user is going to be driven by financial and economic incentives, and we need to get the policy actors to ensure that we create the right incentive framework for these systems to take off. On networking, I agree with you perfectly, and that's why under AFLIS we had a network of experts on post-harvest losses set up, and it's been a fantastic network through which many activities have been undertaken in several countries, including in North Africa, which appears to have been excluded completely from the process of developing access or providing access to as reliable estimates as possible on post-harvest losses. So let's keep working together on that. As far as new technologies are concerned, I think we should all be open to new technologies and innovations that will advance the cause of post-harvest loss reduction. But I will give the last word first to Professor Sani, and then after that to Tanya.
Well, I think the most important thing is that we all agree that effective post-harvest takes actions within the nodes, and is not limited to one solution. It has to be an integrative approach. 2, collaboration and partnership is very important. I agree with that. I think to Kit and Ben, Adrian, in 2003, NRI attempted what we call Food African Conference Initiative. Food African Initiative, we were in Yaoundé in 2003, and we could not follow it up. We need a network like that, because I see maybe it is this Food and Nutrition Conference. If we want to make it a one-year affair where something will pull all NRI fellows and everybody together and we'll meet again, something like that. There is the need for that. That will cascade into South-South collaboration and networking. And by the time we know ourselves, we'll begin to build it up and something like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think there are all these no regrets options out there, technologies that we know about. Not all of them are widely enough shared. I think there's a lot that we could be doing around basic kind of capacity building of advisors to farmers, service providers in post-harvest. It's often the bit of the curriculum that gets forgotten because it's all the focus on how to plant, what spacing, et cetera, and that often gets forgotten, and then they're expected to advise on it, and often they themselves don't know that if you add 1 packet of pesticide for 10 bags instead of for the 2 bags it's recommended for, it's not going to work and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities there. I think even the really basic stuff like store hygiene and not mixing last year's crop with this year's crop, people, it sounds obvious, but an insect life cycle, those insects that Brighton showed earlier, most of the life cycle happens inside the grain, so you can look for a whole month at that grain and think it's fine. And suddenly that larva turns into a pupa and the adult emerges and your whole sack of grain is heaving with insects. So, that's easy if you understand about insect metamorphosis and insect life cycles, but if you don't know exactly about that, it can be quite kind of strange to understand that there's worth you to clear out your stores before you put next year's thing in. So it sounds obvious, but it's not happening, so it obviously isn't obvious. So it's some of these really basic things, I think. And I think, for the SDGs and these targets, we look at them and you have to wonder, who thought that data already existed? Or where did they think for some of these targets, how easy was it going to be to monitor that without actually setting up systems that enabled that to be tracked? Or, looking at why these aren't part of kind of the Ministry of Agriculture's general monitoring. So do you want to base all your policy on guesstimates, or do you actually want to use, to build capacity in having systems that are monitoring loss and looking at how it changes when you introduce different trainings or interventions or market opportunities or, finance or loans and things like that? How does it affect post-harvest losses? So I think those are my final points, yeah.
Thank you both very much. So let's give them a clap. And finally, there is something I intentionally neglected to do at the beginning. I didn't introduce myself. And the reason for that is I wanted to avoid those coming up with questions, giving us paragraphs in describing themselves. So I'm Gideon Onuma. I've been with NRI for many years, and I work mainly on agricultural finance and marketing issues, and I've been involved in post-harvest loss work with Tanya. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you very much, panel. That's brilliant. We've got a quick Mentimeter to do, just because that's what you needed at the end of a really long day. I don't know how many people know how this works. If you have a mobile phone, anybody here not got a mobile phone? There you go. So, right, you've got, okay. You're not included, but everybody else, if you search for Mentimeter, what's the code, Tanya? It's on the top of the screen, very small, so I'll read it out. So if you search on your mobile, get your mobile phone out and Google Mentimeter, menti.com, and then put in this code. You all ready for the code? 5168 3668. Pull yourself together, Keith. We need to. Are you ready? Keith, are you ready? 5168 3668. Are you in? So imagine you're investing $250,000 to support country X. We've all been to country X by accident a few times. It's not such a nice place. Country X to reduce their food loss and waste. What would you spend it on? So response one, measure post-harvest loss, the target loss reduction at the hotspots, hermetic storage, cold storage facilities. Are these the answers coming up, Tanya? Yeah. Excellent. So if you type in something, it'll come up on this screen, and it won't say Keith Tomlin says this, so you can't be associated with it, so you can pretty much say what you want. Train the trainers. Adding post-harvest loss reduction to primary school curriculum. An interesting thought. Simple, accessible technologies for smallholders. Change country X name to country Y. Very, very droll, whoever did that. Well done. I will spend it on improving security along the trade routes to enable safe delivery. I like that one. Empowering the stakeholders about food loss and waste. Awareness creation on the losses and the reduction options available. Training in perception change. That's a tricky thing. Depending on what the country's issues are, fair enough. Invest in agronomy schemes to provide plant doctors to work with communities to identify local sources of waste and improve pest pathogen management practice. Plant doctors. Training and capacity building among value chain actors. Cold storage and hermetic storage. Improving digital agriculture. Distribution infrastructure. Small-scale actions. We've already spent all this money. It's well gone. Awareness materials for rural population, training and capacity building of farmers and other local stakeholders. Brilliant. Thank you, folks, for engaging with that. But it's quite interesting, isn't it? A lot of training and capacity building in there, which kind of, it's the theme that we've had through this afternoon is actually, we still, after my career and Tanya's career and Latif's career, we're still talking about some very basic and simple solutions to some of these problems. It's not so massively complicated and technology-driven. There's a voting in progress for these things.
Yes, so now you can vote. On your phone, you'll see the list of what everybody put up, and I think you have 3 votes, so you can just click on it to show your top 3 things you think we should invest in there. Just touch on that plus sign.
That's good. If anybody's voting Scottish Nationalist, you're in the wrong place. Will it tell us when everybody's voted? Won't keep you going for that much longer. We nearly all done? A lot of heads still down, so I think people are still thinking of it. There must be a long list to go through. I can't see what it looks like because I haven't got my phone open. There we go. 17 responses. Simple, accessible technologies for smallholders. It's getting 3. Actually, it's quite evenly dispersed. That's interesting, isn't it? You'd think everybody would vote for one thing, but it turns out you've all voted for different things. Hope you haven't all voted for your own idea. That'd be a bit disappointing if you've all done that, but I guess that may be what has happened. But anyhow, the simple and accessible technologies, very strong. What policies would you like to see country X implementing to support food loss and waste reduction? Is this the same thing going to come up again? Wait for it. What's happening, Tanya? Are people voting, or are we waiting for the... here we go.
Answering the second question, I think.
Ah, okay, I see. Measuring mycotoxin levels. Pay as you dispose. Interesting interesting notion. Commitment to infrastructure development. Charge for food waste. Minimum mycotoxin thresholds. Innovation and implementation, easy, accessible, and accessible technologies. Applied safety and quality management system based on best practice. Thank you, Linda, for that one. Garner on better transport. Strengthening market information. I'm glad someone's come up with that. Storage monitoring, okay. Pay-to-use cool stores for farmers and retailers is a cool idea. Subsidy on food storage infrastructure. Improve tax incentives for technologies that improve reduce post-harvest losses and waste. I would say that if you're in this country this week, our farmers have organised themselves to block off the ports, and because they have quite a lot of political power and energy to do that, as do French farmers, Polish farmers across Europe. Actually getting incentives for stuff. You know, it's interesting that some countries are quite good at doing this, some countries not very good, and not very enabled to do that. Incentives to reduce food loss and waste, training, credit facilities to aid adoption, policies that promote access to affordable technologies for loss reduction. Okay, are we nearly done, Tanya?
We're nearly done. You can now vote.
Now you vote, now you can choose your favourite. Don't choose your own. Go wild, choose somebody else's. I feel there ought to be like a drum roll that's going to... Here we go. Strengthening market information, very popular. What other votes we've got in further down? With closely followed by distribution infrastructure. But again, quite dispersed. Maybe the lesson here is people, you know, we don't know what's the best, and that's part of the problem. What's it doing now, Tanya? Any idea? You're going to summarize this.
Voting still on that second question. Sorry, guys.
It's all right.
You vote on it, make sure.
6 people.
Put your hands up when you finish voting, and if it's not showing on your phone that you've voted yet.
8.
Let's you might need to vote again, I'm afraid. Sorry, I might have
9.
missed something that time.
10. think we're going to have to draw it to a close soon, because we're going to need to move to 11, 12, 13. Right, we're nearly there, Tanya. Shall we... 15, there's loads coming in now. 17. 21.
Anyone still voting?
No, lots of heads up. If you finish voting, put your head up, and then we'll know we've... there we go. Yeah, I think we finished voting. 23.
Okay, we're going to finish voting, yep. What have we got?
Strength and market information is the winner with 7. Food cooperatives. Interesting. We've not talked about cooperation, and that's been a serious challenge that we've made almost no progress with all these years. Pay-to-use cool stores, very popular, and pay-as-you-dispose, which would be great to talk about more. Subsidy on food storage infrastructure, commitment to infrastructure development, market storage monitoring and training, and policies that promote access to affordable technology is also quite high. Interesting. Okay, Tanya, thank you for organising that for us, but it's interesting the views people have. If that section is finished, Tanya, my proposal now, I've asked Parag, where are you, Parag? I've asked Parag, who's had the unenviable task of listening for the last X hours, to come up with 5 take-homes for us. Not such an easy thing to do. I just read them out if I were you. It'll be absolutely fine. Parag.
Well, I think there are a lot of exciting discussions happen, so I just try to jot down the major points. The first thing is about the post-harvest food loss and waste in Africa, which is a symptom of inefficient and inequitable food system due to inadequate science, technology, and innovation capacity. I think what it requires is lack of infrastructure. So any improvement that requires identify the hotspot for value chain efficiency and also infrastructure capacity building, which will actually go into the, targeted with the know-how development to deliver the impact via sustainable, I think technologies that we talked about, sustainable, simple, and affordable. Also, we talked about the greater granularity of data generation and monitoring, because there is essentially an improvement requires in terms of food loss and waste data collection. And the biggest challenge is that there is a scarcity of data. And that might require a private engagement of the private sectors to incentivize the data gatherings as well as the management via multi-stakeholder participation. Then the third point is about the linking food safety and food loss connectivity, which is requiring the safety practice and also in intervention framework development. There were quite an example given about that adopting smart technologies, like, for example, technology for early detection of food spoilage, which might reduce the food loss. And last but not least is about basically what is required to build the post-harvest or develop post-harvest research as a future. And that is basically the understanding food systems and also accept, which is very important, I would say, about the post-harvest being a sector which is complex and dynamic. Therefore, the researchers should have a multidisciplinary vision, awareness, and also digitally skilled, which should be supported by adequate investment and support. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. No mean task to summarize that long session in 5 bullet points. So really well done, Parag. Thank you very much. My thanks to everybody involved in this session. I know it's been quite long and somewhat challenging. 1 or 2 folks jumped in at the last minute. I'm particularly grateful, Tanya, for your agreeing to jump in and help us out. But I think your contribution was really, really good and useful. To Just to explain what's going to happen next, we have a poster session. There are FaNSI staff posters here, there are NRI staff posters, there are FaNSI student posters. I think there are other student posters as well, so a wide range. FaNSI and NRI, they're the same thing at the end of the day. So please mingle, use your legs. People will come to you, I understand, with nibbles and drinks, so you don't actually need to go get them. So please, thank you very much for your patience through this session.